All right, let's get started so that we can make sure that we cover all of the content we have planned for you today. This is our auditor overview session. I think, interestingly, we saw on the attendee list a mix of actual current customers, so the folks who are interacting with the system on a weekly, monthly basis, certainly some folks that are in implementation. We're excited to have auditors on the phone, and then some new faces at biotechs that are not yet Auxilius customers. So I think we're going to try to kind of ensure that we're giving enough value-added content to kind of all those different audiences. Key thing is we'd love for this to be an interactive session. Raise hands, drop questions in the chat. Today we're going to cover a couple things. Number one, introductions. I think a lot of you have met one of us, but we'll kind of audience. And so important to note, there is so much in the product we won't go through today, and that's by design. If there are questions you have after, if there are features and functionalities that you saw on here but want to go deeper on, please let us know. So with that, I'll start with my intro. I'm Erin Warner-Gwill, the president and COO of Auxilius. I've been here since we started Auxilius. I'm a former investment banker, private equity investor, and operator of healthcare data and analytics businesses before starting Auxilius. I have with me today Christy Sasso. Really psyched to have her. She's a technical accounting lead here at Auxilius. Christy, if you could introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining today. So as Erin said, I'm Christy Sasso. I'm the Director of Technical Accounting Success here at Auxilius. Some quick background on me. I am a CPA. I started my career working at EY in their commercial assurance practice. So I was auditing biopharma companies like a lot of you on the call today. After my time at EY, I joined the M&A team at Charles River Labs. There, in addition to the accounting, I oversaw the systems integrations, as well as implemented the SOX controls for the newly acquired companies and brought them onto our financial systems and processes. I most recently joined Auxilius because I saw in my audit experience, the biopharma clients really struggled with the clinical accruals accounting. I saw there was a major gap kind of between the communication with the business partners and the accounting team actually responsible for booking the accrual journal entry every month. And within that, I saw some super complex Excel workbooks, which as an auditor, I found it really challenging to try to recalculate those accruals and tie that all back to the source documentation. So happy to be here today to share our perspective on the auditability of Auxilius.
Great. And so what you'll hear today is not only kind of the overview, but Christy works directly with some of you on the phone, and we'll share kind of her perspective on the like where the rubber hits the road, where auditors are interacting with the product. So if we go to the next slide, I think Christy actually did a great job of framing the challenge here. Clinical trial financial management today, if you are not leveraging a software solution, which I'd argue this category is created in the last several years, you were leveraging Excel. And we're talking 50-tab Excel trackers as the norm. But key though, and as a recovering investment banker, Excel in and of itself is not the challenge. It's the data inputs, it's the time crunch. Those are the things that make the 50-tab Excel tracker an unscalable and a really tough to audit process. Couple of the other things that are happening that we see all the time, right, is not maliciousness on the part of the CRO, but just inaccurate and incomplete data that's coming in at the end of the month or the quarter. Lack of timely information. So maybe the information is completely accurate, but there is a lot of our customers are struggling with the turnaround time in order to get that information and incorporate that into their closed workbook. Especially given that the threshold for estimating the accrual needs to show that there has been exercise of judgment, right? If you're getting that vendor confirmation file on the last day of your close, it is really hard to be able to, at scale, take a strong look at that information in context. And then, of course, as Christy mentioned, reliance on business partners who speak clinical, and those business partners are smart and they are responsible for running the clinical trial. And a lot of times it is very hard for them to get you the information you need in a timely manner. So this is perfect storm, and this is why we created Auxilius. I think, again, we have a mix of folks on the phone. So if we go to the next slide, we're not going to spend a ton of time on what Auxilius is, but it is like purpose-built for these problems that we've seen within the biopharma industry. Auxilius solves or answers three main questions. The first question is, what do I expect to happen in my study? Now, we all think of that as sort of the classic FP&A question, forward-looking, so maybe that doesn't impact me on the accounting side. Our view is that it is really important to have at least some view, some internal view of your expense estimation, and that is most accurate when it's driven by the clinical evidence that you have within your own study. And we'll talk a little bit about what that kind of forecasting, FP&A, budgeting and planning view is, because, and really we're focused here on close, we use that as an evidence source that you can potentially use to corroborate what you're seeing from your vendor. The second question we answer is, what is actually happening in my study? And that's our bread and butter. That is why we're on the phone today. That is the accrual or prepaid position for all of your vendors in your outsourced ecosystem. Shouldn't be hard, but it is in this category of spend. There is high materiality because of the P&L structure. Again, we're heavily reliant on an outsourced ecosystem. And there is, again, that like timing and complexity issue. The third question that we answer is, what is driving the variance between what we expected to happen and what is actually happening? Now, this is a vendor accountability question. We are all quite reliant, again, on this vendor ecosystem. Our view is that it is not just a vendor accountability question. It can actually help drive further accuracy around that accrual calculation. If you can be questioning where those deltas are occurring, then you can use that information to better optimize your expense estimation at the end of the period. Now, you'll see one module on here that is important to call out in and of itself. That is our investigator intelligence module. We recognize that investigator spend comprises anywhere from 30 to 50% of your overall study budget. It also happens to be the most volatile and variable cost bucket, right? You have a good sense of where you're going to be on the services side. Investigator forecast at the beginning of the study is by definition wrong. And that trend continues through the study. It tends to be the hardest bucket to actually forecast and accrue for. So we've built an entire kind of proprietary engine to enable calculations of that investigator bucket, leveraging the key data sources. So those site CTAs down to kind of the visitor procedure cost, married to your actual clinical data to give you the real-time insights on the investigator intelligence side. So quick slide on what it is we do at Auxilius. I think a lot of you guys are familiar. If we go to the next slide, I'm going to pass to Christy to just talk through kind of purpose-built features and functionalities in the Auxilius system.
Thanks, Erin. Yeah, so the Auxilius system was designed with process and controls in mind. During my career, I've reviewed many financial systems, some great, some not so great. So it was definitely a prerequisite for me to join Auxilius to have confidence in the auditability and the robust controls built into the Auxilius system. The first that I'll call out is our feature level permissioning that allows for proper segregation of duties. So each feature within Auxilius, you are able to assign specific permissions to any user in the system. So that way you can allow for certain preparer and reviewer workflows within your close process. Along with that, we have a comprehensive close checklist with automated document reminders. This helps ensure the completeness of the inputs going into your accrual calculation, as well as helps facilitate review for accuracy of your final journal entry. And then within that closed checklist and within other features and product, we do have documented approval workflows. So you're able to sign off on your review of those different inputs into the model, into your journal entry, and that all will flow into your monthly audit package. So what's great is in the system, when you close a month, it will auto-generate a nice little zip file that has all of the inputs into your final journal entry for the month, as well as the source documentation that was used to calculate your journal entry. And then this helps with your journal entry traceability and reproducibility from an audit aspect. So not only are we able to see all of the inputs and the numbers that go into your accrual for the month, but all the source documentation from your vendor or those change orders or your site contracts, those will pull into the audit package each month. So from an audit perspective, all the information that you need to test that clinical accrual is packaged up into a nice little file for you on a monthly basis. And then the last is just we have direct integrations for data completeness. So we're able to integrate directly with your ERP system. As you'll know, with clinical accruals, invoices are a major input into the accrual calculation. So being able to connect directly with your ERP and pull in that data to our system helps ensure completeness from an invoice standpoint. And then last thing I'll call out, we have it here on the screen. Auxilius also has their SOC 1 Type 2 and SOC 2 Type 2 reports, which is huge from an audit perspective. Also on the SOC 2 front, we have configured single tenant environments that are fully encrypted with secure, robust information security programs. And we also enable SSO configuration for that added security benefit.
Now, we're going to walk just a bit through, and I tried to distill kind of on the next slide, the core kind of functionality of the system, just so you can see inputs into the system and then what's coming out. The key is that we're configuring at the trial level data models that are specific to the sponsor's specific trial. Now, one thing I want to note here is that this is surface level configuration. There is no forking of the code base. There is no code base customization for any of our customers. We can configure based on the design of the system. We're going to create a budget data model that incorporates all the vendors that are supporting the trial so that we have the comprehensive view of what's happening on the budget side. We incorporate change orders, change notification forms, vendor confirmation files, obviously your upfront work orders, any change orders that are coming in. The other side of the budget data model is going to come directly from the ERP, as Christy mentioned, right? We need those invoices, we need those POs. On the clinical data model side, we're configuring, leveraging your site CTAs and leveraging your specific schedule of assessments to build the longitudinal patient visit schedule. We're also coding in all of the invoiceables. We're marrying those with the EDC information that's coming in, and we have a very standard pull of data that we require that gives us that view of what's happening, and it enables us to translate on your behalf what's happening on the clinical side into the financial. All of that information then, and we'll walk through the actual workflow, right? We have that expense estimate side of the equation, and then we're getting the invoice side of the equation, and that results in your journal entry. It results in your accrued or prepaid position across your entire GL, or the pertinent part of your GL, that we configure the environment to reflect your specific GL structure. You'll get that JE export file, and that can be uploaded directly into your ERP. Now, this is one of those places, and we'll talk through it a little bit. We can integrate with a third party to do that automated upload into the ERP. Generally speaking, our customers prefer to have the JE export, a control around that final check, and then an upload into their ERP. If we go to the next page, we'll talk through, and this is, I think, the last slide in the deck. This is eyesore, lots of information, but hopefully what you hear out of here is that we do have an auditor engagement roadmap in-house. So this is an illustrative view of a lot of the steps we see and support our customers on in terms of driving auditor engagement and awareness throughout the implementation and hypercare period. I hope what you take away from this is that there's a lot of documentation off the shelf. I think the key things here, we're going to give you a governance overview when you certainly in the sales process if required, and then it's part of our kind of implementation onboarding materials, process flow charts that can give you the comprehensive sense of what's required as inputs and then what you get as an output from the system. As Christy mentioned, SOC 1 and SOC 2 available off the shelf. And then kind of one other thing I'll say is that generally speaking, throughout the onboarding process, we engage with auditors in a variety of ways. We are willing to we have on-demand auditor video content, very similar to what you're going to see today. And then we're always willing to jump on the phone with your auditors to walk through the system, to walk through the design, walk through any of the features and functionalities, and answer any questions that they have. Generally speaking, we see that it is really successful for our customers in that hypercare period. So our implementation is comprised of an onboarding period, and then and the onboarding is where we're building that clinical and budget data models. Then we're doing a parallel close where you have hypercare access to our service team, where you can actually see the variance between your current workflow and the Auxilius workflow. That is a really great time to get your auditors into the system, or at least view the system, view the outputs, and to get them comfortable with any variance in output and the drivers of that from a methodology perspective. Before we move on from this page, I was hoping Chrissy could share a couple of ways that we've supported customers on the kind of audit front.
Yeah. So there's a few different ways I've helped assist our customers in getting their auditors comfortable with the Auxilius process. The first is we did a full mapping of the Auxilius system and how that fits into the internal controls around the clinical accrual. So we walked through with their advisory team a full risk control maintenance and risk control matrix, apologies. But what we found in that process was that the use of the Auxilius system in the accrual process mitigated 90% of the risks around the clinical accrual. And then there were just some key controls around the actual import of the journal entry into your ERP system. So we're always happy to help with your internal controls and documenting the process of using Auxilius with your clinical accrual. I've also helped complete auditor walkthroughs with my customers. So if they want to hop on a call, I'm happy to show them how the system works, where the numbers come, how that all gets calculated into your final journal entry. And then I've also just supported with any questions on that final audit package. So where those inputs came from, how everything's configured, just to get them familiar with the structure of the evidence that they'll be receiving and how everything's configured coming out of Auxilius.
Great. Again, I would certainly, for all of our current customers on the phone, if you have not taken advantage of any of the off-the-shelf materials or support that we're offering, I'm happy to answer any questions on that. With the rest of the time, we're going to jump actually into the product. This is very much geared towards, if we have auditors on the phone, just sort of helping you understand how we constructed the system, some of the core features and functionalities that we'll call out in order to help you understand how the companies that you're auditing are leveraging the Auxilius system. But also my big goal here is that folks, our customers, auditors, et cetera, understand there is no black box. What we are doing is helping support the preparation of the workbook. We are trying to streamline that preparation process while ensuring that there is ultimate control over the resulting journal entry. Our goal is that someone is shifting that 40 hours of Excel workbook preparation, all of the ingestion of the data and the mapping in of those vendor estimates that can be pretty bad coming in from the CROs, shifting that time to actually exercising judgment around that expense estimation. So actually taking the time to say, does this make sense? Is this the best source of evidence for my expense estimate? So hopefully that's what you'll see coming out of the system. I also, please take us up on if you're one of our customers or potential customers and want to get your auditor in the system, maybe not into your environment, but we can show them a demo environment and start giving them some exposure. One final plug I'll just say, since we have so many of our current customers on the call, let us know if these sessions are helpful. Let us know if there are sessions that we could provide with specific content, and we're happy to do that.
Yes, so the permissions are editable at any point in time, and they're also able to be exported as supporting documents. So if you have a control around user access permissions, you can export that as your supporting documentation, and at any point in time, those roles can be changed. We do recommend having an IT access admin to log into the system and make changes at any point in time. The only note is obviously anyone with access to update permissions cannot change their own permission.
We very much appreciate everyone joining. Thanks for spending your lunch with us. And let us know if there's anything else. With that, we'll let everyone have 5 minutes back if no further questions. Happy Tuesday, all. Bye.
Everyone, thank you.